The eyes of the hockey world are focused on Los Angeles tonight as it is the first round of the NHL entry draft. Hunter and I are going to get you set for that and more right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy NHL Draft weekend to everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet, joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's account on Twitter a follow at LO_Penguins. And you can also follow us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, as always, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, with a big weekend ahead, make sure you've hit that notification button on YouTube so you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes and any other breaking news episodes we may drop between now and then. And before we get going, Hunter, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. 7 o'clock tonight on ESPN if you are in the United States. Round one of the NHL entry draft from the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles. It's the first year that they are officially doing a decentralized draft. So Kyle Dubas and company are right now in Market Square because they are making renovations to the UPMC Sports Complex. While they do that, they are going to get ready for the draft. And as we know, as of right now at 3:00 p.m. on Friday, as we record this, the Penguins have the 11th and 12th overall pick. We spent the last week or so discussing Hunter's draft board, which you got to go back and listen to those. Hunter did a phenomenal job putting that together and getting you ready for some potential picks that Dubas and company may make this evening and this weekend. But let's boil it down to one thing on this episode, Hunter, because at the end of the day, we are podcasters, we are YouTubers, and we got to go a little cliche. So I'm going to ask you this question straight up. What constitutes a good night in round one? What constitutes a bad night in round one for the Pittsburgh Penguins?
A good night, I think, to me, is one of two things. Either A, you take two forwards back-to-back, if that is Victor Eklund and Roger McQueen. I would say that is a very good haul, especially if McQueen's medicals are totally good. I also think a forward and one of the three defensemen that we have talked about this week is also good now. You know, one of Eklund, O'Brien, for example, Brady Martin, though I don't think he's going to fall, McQueen, a few of the other forwards that are on the list, Potter, Kendall, Carter Bear, again, any of those forwards and, someone like a Jackson Smith, Kayshawn Agenson, Radim Murka, I think that is also a pretty successful night for the Penguins. What I think is a failure is if they go defensemen with back-to-back picks. And I was actually reading the latest mock from Corey Pronman on The Athletic this morning. He has the Penguins going back-to-back for a defenseman. I don't know why. I personally don't think that's realistic. I don't think they're going to go two defensemen back-to-back. I think the defensive system needs a little bit of work, but you just can't neglect your forwards for the sake of it. Like, there's going to be good forwards available to you at 11 and 12. I think you have to take one of each there, unless there's two forwards there that you can't pass up. Again, as I mentioned, Victor Eklund and Roger McQueen. Another success, again, if they want to maybe trade up a little bit and take a player who they're really high on their board while keeping the other pick and making that selection, whether it's 11 or 12, they will dangle the other one. I think, to me, that could also potentially be a successful night for the Penguins. So that's really what constitutes a good and a bad night for me. Again, you can't take two defensemen back-to-back. If you walk out, for example, I'll say this, with a couple players maybe lower on my board forward-wise, like a Lakovic and one of Agenson, Smith, or Murka, I'd probably lean that closer to being a little bit of a failure just because I have Lakovic a lot lower on my board than some other people. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Pat and I are going live around 10 o'clock tonight, Eastern time on our YouTube channel. So please go check that out. We'll be live for about an hour. How long is it going to take to do 11 to 12 picks? Probably an hour, 15 minutes. And then we'll give our thoughts on the Penguins, and then we'll probably jump out and then we'll react to all the other news. But I think that's where I stand when it comes to a successful night for the Penguins versus a unsuccessful night for this team.
For sure. I want to pick up the ball, so to speak, from where you said about the latest mock that has the Penguins taking 2 defensemen.
That's only one mock, just
right. But that's arguably the best mock draft out there. Pronman is so good, in my estimation, of what he does. Here's the thing that I want to kind of caveat that with is if that's what they decide to do, if they decide to say take Jackson Smith and HSN back to back at 11 and 12, or any of the number, whether it's Radom Merca or another one like that at 11 or 12, that means this offseason has to be focused on getting forwards into the system. We know that Dubas wants to be active on the trade market. He wants to bring in young talent looking for a second chance or take advantage of teams in a cap crunch that need to get rid of a bad contract, but need to add a sweetener in order to get rid of it. If that's the case, where you take the 2 defensemen and you have this summer where you get a couple young forwards into the system right away, I can live with that. But that's how it has to work in my estimation. I do agree, though, with what you're saying. I think you have to split this. It has to be a forward and a defenseman because there are big needs at both. The biggest need to me, and I don't think, and I'm going to transition this a little bit away from the draft just because it's something that came out this morning from our friend Josh Yohe, is one of the biggest needs they have is center. Behind Sid and Gino, there is not a whole heck of a lot in the system, but there has been talk that they are interested in Utah's Jack McBain. I would be curious to see what comes of this because
what's funny going off that? I don't mean to interrupt you. I was listening to 32 Thoughts this morning, and Elliot Friedman kind of said that other teams expect Utah to sign McBain. So not really sure how likely this is right now, but go ahead.
For sure. But the point I wanted to make was this. I like McBain. He fits the kind of model that Dubas is looking for. He wants the team to get a little bit nastier, a little bit harder to play against. What worries me is I don't know how long he would fit, because you look at his numbers and they're fine for a bottom 6 center, but I need them to be a little bit better. So maybe with the Penguins that could get better, but count me as a little skeptical as McBain as a player to bring in.
I think he would be fine. In terms of center depth, they still have Blake Lizotte there. They still have Tommy Novak. He can play center, though we know that Evgeny Malkin wants to play with Novak to start the season and potentially a whole bunch of games this season. But if they really want to, they can just put Novak at third line center and just have a 1-2-3 of that. There's also talk that you could see Novak at second line center and move Malkin to wing at times. That could be an option. And then in case, you could use another third line center. I think McBain is fine. And I agree with you with what you said. They want to be a bit nastier. They want to be tougher to play against. They want to be a bit bigger. It's just that what we saw from him this past season, is that his ceiling, Pat, or can he get to a bit of a higher level? That's the thing. I don't think it's going to be, insanely expensive to get McBain. I just think right now seems like it's more unlikely, because I think sounds like Utah is going to sign him based on what Friedman said on 32 Thoughts this morning. So, it's good that we have an option out there for the Penguins, and we know that Utah is trying to do a whole bunch of things. They just got JJ Peterka. They're looking at a whole bunch of other stuff because they're trying to get back, or not trying to get back. They're trying to make the playoffs, for the 25-26 season. I'm sure we're going to keep hearing about other players out there, but hey, we'll see.
We will. And like I said at the top, 7 o'clock tonight, ESPN, if you're in the United States, round 1 of the NHL entry draft. Locked On Penguins on YouTube around 7 o'clock. Come hang out with me and Hunter. We're going to be talking about the first 12 picks. We're going to keep our eye on where this draft goes and obviously give some snap reaction to the Penguins picks wherever they may be. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But that is going to do it for our opening segment. When we come back, there is peace in our time. The NHL and the NHLPA have issued a memorandum of understanding saying that they have reached an agreement on a new CBA. Hunter and I are going to talk about that when we come back right after this. Before we do that, though, we've got to tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. Gametime, it's the official ticketing partner of Locked On Sports, and it makes it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming MLB games. If you're looking to catch, say, Paul Skeens at PNC Park when he takes the hill, Gametime's your place to be. I know I'm using Gametime right now because in just a couple of days at PPG Paints Arena, WWE's coming to town and your boy wants to do some yeeting in person, and I'm getting my tickets from Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to the Friday edition, NHL Entry Draft Round 1 edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp, right alongside Hunter Hodes. And wouldn't you know it, Hunter, the NHL and the NHLPA have decided to get out of each other's ways and keep us from having another work stoppage. They have issued a memorandum of understanding for the next CBA, which will go into effect on September 16th, 2026, and run through September 15th, 2030. Goodness gracious, if my 40th birthday ends up being a lockout, I'm going to be very upset, but I digress. So let's dive into this. Obviously, a memorandum of understanding means that they are just crossing their T's and dotting their I's. But as I can give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as someone who has negotiated a CBA in his life, this basically means that everything's got to get officially signed, but it's done. They're good with this. Both parties have agreed. It's going to go into effect once all the signatures and lawyers get everything out of the way. Let's talk about the first thing that obviously everybody's going to talk about. We're going to be moving to an 84-game season from an 82-game season. Now, here's the part of this that I know Hunter's shaking his head at that I think is fine. They're taking away 2 preseason games and adding 2 regular season games. Totally cool with that. And the other reporting around it is that the NHL season will begin closer to the end of September rather than, say, the second week of October. Totally good with this.
Okay. But why not just do it with 82 games and start the season at the end of September? And then you can end the season, early June, somewhere in that ballpark. Because now the 84-game regular season, that's 2 more games for everyone else. Now the playoffs are going to go longer. Pat, before we know it, we might have the Stanley Cup final end in early July at this rate. I'm sorry. Do we really need that? I know why they're doing it. Look, money talks. We all know that's why they're doing it. Another reason is so probably each team in their division can probably play their other divisional teams 4 times, because lately you see teams playing each other 3 times during the season, and you see other teams playing each other 4 times. So, okay, that part, I get it to an extent. But the season is already so long. We don't need 2 more regular season games. I'm glad that the preseason is being shortened. That is an easy W for the league. But it feels like for me, this is 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You can shorten the preseason while moving up the start time of the 82-game regular season, which in case will mean the playoffs will end a little bit earlier. Don't get me wrong. I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. Best 2 months in sports to me. in my opinion. But we don't need to be playing like right now into late June. Soon enough, I feel like we're going to be playing into early July, as I said. So that's where I kind of stand on it. They're not going to do anything with a playoff format. Okay, whatever. Another thing that I found was interesting too, the length of contracts in free agency is also being shortened. Remember, Pat, right now you can only sign players in free agency to a max term of 7 years. That's going down to 6 now. But if you are the team that has the player and he's about to become a UFA but doesn't get to market, you'll be able to sign that player to a 7-year term and not 8 years. So if you have the player, he's about to be a UFA, but he hasn't hit the market yet, it's a 7-year term. But if a player is on the market, you can only sign that player to a 6-year term. That's going to be going into full effect, it looks like.
I like this a lot. And one quick thing I want to add on the season length. One thing I want people to keep in mind, there was a time for a couple years in the 90s where there were 84 game seasons. So, and that was when the Stanley Cup was getting awarded in early June and even late May, depending on length of series in the final. So it's totally possible to make this work, but I digress. Yeah, for the contracts, I like this for 2 reasons. One, it's benefiting where the Penguins are right now, because there's going to be a lot of players that are going to suddenly hit the market because they're going to have shorter contracts. The Penguins are going to have a lot of salary cap space, hopefully a younger team. They'll have some money to spend. Works out in their favor. On the other hand of it, though, even though it's only decreasing by 1 year, we are probably going to get some more active July 1st. We're going to see more players go to market. You mix the contract shortened length with an explosion in the salary cap. I do think we're not going to see, just like we are now, we're not going to see a lot of max term deals. We're going to see guys taking 3, 4, 5 years at most, because assuming the world doesn't shut down again like it did in 2020, guys are going to see salary caps going up. They're not going to want to commit to 6 or 7 years. They're going to want to be able to get one more contract, cash out one more time. So I do think at the end of the day, this is a pretty good move for the NHL in the fact that you can make the product away from the game itself more entertaining, because you'll get more player movement, you'll get more contract shenaniganery, which that if you're an NBA fan, that's one of the most fun things about the NBA is player movement, contracts, all that stuff. It makes the game more fun and more frequently you follow it. So,
and the NBA just had their big salary cap boom as well. So, and you're seeing all the player movement right now. I mean, we just saw the Luka trade earlier this year, which I still can't believe was real. I thought the NBA insiders, their phones were hacked once that happened. But you're even seeing it now. Noah Dobson just got dealt to the Canadiens today. You're starting to see some more bigger moves now that the cap is really going on. I mean, he's extending for 8 times 9.5 in Montreal. Again, you're going to be seeing some big contracts handed out. Though I am curious to see, though, in free agency for players like, Ehlers, Marner, are they going to go for max term, or are they maybe going to go for something like a 3 to 4 year deal to maybe cash out again in a few years when this cap has boomed even more? I'm curious about that too.
Let's talk about one last thing before we end this segment, and it's probably the worst part of this agreement. It is the playoff cap, essentially. There is an agreement in the new CBA that playoff game rosters must be cap compliant. However, that's not quite the correct explanation. You can still utilize LTIR as a team. You can still utilize LTIR, put a guy on that list, and go get other players at the deadline or in the lead up to the deadline. What this agreement says is that you can exceed the salary cap going into the playoffs, but the roster that you have on the ice for the game has to be cap compliant. So 18 players and 2 goalies in the active roster that night must be compliant with the salary cap. I know a lot of people are probably wincing at that, but I want to put it this way. When you have an exploding salary cap like the NHL has right now, that will not be difficult to do, because there will be guys that you can scratch, guys you don't have to play, and you can put all your big guns out there and make it work under the salary cap.
Yeah, I think teams will adjust to this pretty quickly. I don't really think this is going to be a big issue, honestly. That's really all I have to say about it. It's just not going to be that big of an issue.
Right. And my main point of it was the way it got framed by a lot of reports was that basically this was going to hamstring a lot of teams. I'm not worried about that at all. One last thing. I lied. One last thing before we go to break. Toronto Maple Leafs fans, you can breathe a sigh of relief because part of the new CBA is that every team must now have a full-time emergency backup goalie in their organization. So there will be no more David Ayers Zamboni drivers waiting in the wings to beat your team. I like that overall, though, jokes aside, because it is a little bush league that there might be somebody in the stands who plays Monday Night Beer League and has to come into a game in the NHL. Good story as it is, let's be honest, it's probably a little dangerous.
Hey, I agree with you. I think this is a very good change. You can have the third goalie around all the time now. Again, we all know what happened with Toronto. The memes are going to be there forever, but this is a good change. I will commend the NHL for that. Hey, I'll commend the NHL for continuing to have labor peace. This is very odd when you look at the history between the league and the PA. So this makes me happy.
Funny when you have a head of the NHLPA who actually knows how to negotiate and get things done. Things happen to work out, but I digress. That's going to do it for our CBA talk on this edition of the Locked On Penguins. When we come back, just because it's draft night doesn't mean we're straying from tradition. It's Friday. That means it's Fan Take Friday, and we got some great ones submitted for us today. We're going to talk about those when we come back right after this. However, before we do that, we got to tell you about today's last sponsor, and that is Monarch Money. Have you ever wished that managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money, it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. One of the best things, I keep saying this about Monarch since I started using it, it's a one-stop shop. I don't have to switch between my bank account app, my credit card app, my savings app, my spreadsheets. It's all right there. I don't have to give myself stress polyps from sitting there going between different apps and wondering if I did the math right. Monarch's doing it for me. It's fantastic. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back in to the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. And like I said, we're not straying from tradition just because it's draft day. For some of you who are new here, each Friday, we put a call out on our social medias asking you for your takes for Fan Take Friday. It can be anything from questions to hot takes and everything in between about the Penguins, the NHL, and anything else. So since I said anything else, Hunter, let's start with a funny one to kick us off on this Friday. This comes from Ken on YouTube. Hot take: the Clarks are not that good. Just because they are from Pittsburgh doesn't mean we automatically have to have them at every Pittsburgh-themed event. Okay, two things on this. One, disagree. They're solid. They're not great. Like, they're not like one of my favorite bands, but they've got some solid songs. Their cover of Bruce Springsteen's The River absolutely slaps. I agree with the second part, though. They don't have to be at every single Pittsburgh event. We don't have to have them there every single time.
I agree. I don't think they need to be there for every single big sporting event. I'm sure they're probably going to be there, though, for the 2026 NFL draft when it comes to Pittsburgh next year. I don't listen to them as much. I love that you brought up the cover, though. That is very good. Still, for people that don't know, a lot of my music is 70s, 80s rock, hair metal stuff. That's the music I listen to, people. So there's a fun fact about me. But moving on, there's some other hockey-related ones I got here on Twitter, Pat. Blake V says Roger McQueen looks like a Tage Thompson clone. I can see it a little bit, especially with the size. So I don't think that's too out of left field.
The size is there. I want to see the size is there. I want to see the skill and goal scoring catch up. But yeah. I think that as far as comparables go, that is not a bad one whatsoever.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's out of left field or anything like that. Harrison Baldwin says Penguins should take whoever they think is better at 12. So for the rest of the time, the Rangers pick was used on so-and-so and he becomes a Rangers killer. You know what, Harrison? I love that take. I can see them potentially doing that, though they might go for the better player 11. But hey, maybe they do as you say, take the better player at 12.
And just imagine in the short term, the like 6-minute long meltdowns of who they're taking this person at 11, and then they go and take the better player at 12, and we all go, okay. Oh, I got scared there.
It's a good way to troll your fans. So Kyle Dubas, if you are a troll, you can think about doing that. Same to you, Wes Clark.
Let's keep it going here. Another one from YouTube from Kate. I like this one, and we'll see if they do this. I don't think they are tonight, but if they do stick with this draft theme for the foreseeable future, I would like this a lot. Kate says, in a decentralized draft, there should be War Room live streams. We should be able to go online and watch a War Room live and switch between them to guess who is talking to whom. No sound, obviously. I think that would be really cool just to see what it looks like. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, it would get boring after a while. It's not like if you're watching it for the entirety, you're an absolute sicko. But when your team gets close, when their pick is coming up and you want to pop up their live stream and see them doing what they do, I think that'd be a really cool inside look at what happens during this type of draft.
I agree. And you're right. You don't need the sound on it because I think like that would just also be like kind of weird and all that. But I think a lot of fans would tune in to something like that just to see like the scrambling over, oh, look, this GM's getting on the phone. Who could he be calling? And then you could see the other live streams, other teams. Oh, maybe he's calling this GM to see if they're talking about a big trade. So like that type of thing would be pretty cool because we are like low key getting robbed of that. It is fun when you see like the insiders and the reporters at the draft being like, oh, this GM's going over to this table. What could they be talking about? Oh, this GM's getting on the phone again. Oh, that's just this GM's also getting on the phone again. So we're getting robbed of that. So it would be cool to see that live on a stream. I am also not sure how long this is going to be the case for. What I mean by that is, are they going to keep doing the same draft going into next year? Or are they going to go back to having the draft in a select location? I think they should go back to doing what they were doing before because it's just better. But we'll have to see if the teams agree to that. This also one was really cool. If both of you have a gut feeling, do you think the Penguins will trade up in the draft tonight? My gut feeling tells me Kyle Dubas is going to pull the trigger and he's going to move up. What are your thoughts? If I had to guess right now, I think he's going to stay at 11 and 12, and they will pick two players there. Pat, gun to your head, what do you say?
I'm with you on that. I think they don't have quite enough immediately available because remember, the draft is before free agency. I know that is Captain Obvious stating the obvious, but one of their biggest pieces that they're going to have to move or potentially move is Brian Rust, but that can't happen until July 1st. So that's going to kind of hamstring.
Well, unless he potentially gets dealt tonight. There's been some rumors out there regarding Buffalo. So but he'd have to waive his NMC for that, and we don't know if he would.
The process will be a lot harder.
Yes.
If you have to go to him and his agent and get them to agree, which I don't think Rust would be. I don't think he would be too much of a pain in regard to that, especially when you've got all of 4 days remaining of it. But it just makes the process more difficult because you can't just say, okay, we're going to trade you Brian Rust in XYZ so we can move up. So I do think that at the end of the day, they're just going to stick at 11 and 12. But you know that he is going to try every avenue to try to move up tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And let's finish up on this one. From G-Fish in the same type of vein, hoping Dubas trades up to 3 or 4, would love Martone. I would settle for McQueen or Eklund and the best available after that. If they can find a way to get Martone, our live stream is going to get weird because I would be so happy if they were able to move up.
As long as you're not barking at that WWE person that you were telling me about earlier this week. Can it get weirder than that, Pat? Let's be real here. But yeah, I mean, if they can find a way to get Martone or Higgins, sign me up while also keeping the other pick that they have in the first round. My problem is with Higgins. I think the Islanders are going to make a move now. They traded Dobson. They got pick 16 and 17 back from the Habs. I think they're going to try and package those 2 picks to move up into the top 10 to snag him. Boston, I could see them giving them a call. We'll see.
Hey, we will. And like we have said multiple times on this show, around 7 o'clock tonight, we will be live on our YouTube channel, Locked On Penguins. We're going to hang out until the Penguins make their picks, give some snap analysis. So come hang out with us tonight while you're watching the NHL Draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more laid back than what we do on our normal episodes. So we hope to see you there. But that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. For Hunter Hodes, I'm Patrick Damp. We will talk to you later tonight.